neighbors, and members of Boundless Way Zen Temple. Welcome to this wonderful event to celebrate David Rynick's brand new book, Wandering Close to Home. My name is Michael Herzog. I am the director and resident teacher here at the temple. We are a Boundless Way Zen Temple, for those who don't know, is a organization dedicated to Buddhist training and practice. We have daily meditation sets, we have multi-day meditation, and we also run courses and workshops right here at the temple and online, and through our 7 practice groups, which are located in North America, Europe, and online. David, we have a wonderful day planned for David, who will be reading some pieces from his book, but a few other things that you might want to know: that this garden that you're sitting in is part of the temple, and it's also open 7 days a week to everyone for from dawn to dusk to come sit and just spend time. It's a beautiful place in a gem in Worcester. David and Melissa Roche, who are both the founders of this organization and the guiding teachers, are dedicated to bringing this practice to all of us. And it's really apparent in David's book. I really think it's a beautiful book. And here to talk a little bit more about that is Melissa Roche.
Well, I want to quote my granddaughter who's sitting in the front row. There she is, Smara. She only has one word so far in her vocabulary, and it's wow, wow, wow. And I gotta say, that's how I feel looking out over all of you. My job is to introduce David. Yeah, most of you know him. Some of you know him really well, and some of you are related to him. And all of you have shown up for this very important moment in the life of our partnership, but also in the life of the temple. Some of you know that David is already an author. This is his second book. The first book was called This Truth Never Fails. And just to show of hands, how many of you have read and enjoyed that book? Yeah, pretty cool. And this new book, Wandering Close to Home, he'll talk more about it. I'm not going to say much, but because I was given the job of introducing him to people who already know him. But if you don't know him, here's a little bit background. We've been together for a really long time, since 1977. That's when we met. And we both worked at a natural food co-op. So one of the many gifts that David has is he's a natural organizer and really good at selecting fruits and vegetables for sale. He's brought that into the present moment too, still really good at organizing, and still really good, oh, welcome, welcome, and still really good at bringing together people who are from all over the place with one common goal. And of course our goal is Zen meditation, but it's bigger than that, and that's another thing that David brings to the whole picture. After he was involved in selling fruits and vegetables, he also was a potter and a photographer and got a master's degree in creative arts. And you can see many of his sculptures all over the garden. And then even before that, he got involved actually in Zen before he got involved in Zen, because he spent his senior year in high school in Japan, in Nagasaki. So he learned a lot about Japan and Japanese culture, martial arts. He became an Aikido master, I would say. Probably not quite. Almost.
I wanted to be one.
So martial arts is another thing that he's really good at. I thought about this and all the things. There was a list that just went on for pages, so I'm just plucking a few things. And the other thing, greetings, great to see you. The other thing is that for all his life, really, he's tried to put his understanding of what it means to be a human being into pictures, photographs, shapes, pottery, and into words. So his writing persisted. He kept a blog that he started. I can't remember when the blog started, but it was quite a while ago. And then during the first year of the pandemic, he wrote every day. He made a commitment, and that's where this book came from. So I think you'll enjoy parts of it if you haven't seen it already. Just wondering how many of you already have seen this book, the new book, and read it. Wow. Okay, well, so I think we've gathered all your fans. And here's Samara. She's trying to say wow to all of you. And I will close with another deep bow of appreciation and multiple wows. Thank you for turning out for this event.
Can I have my pipe? Can I have my pipe, please? Wonderful to be here with all of you today. A book is not something that one person does. A book comes out of the efforts of many people and the support of many people. And if you are here today, you are part of the reason this book came into being. This book is about how to live as a human being, and most of you so far have done just fine, right? All of you successful to this moment. Wow. I guess wow might be the theme for the day. So this book was started at the beginning of the pandemic. I started writing every day, and I wrote for a little over a year. And it was my way to stay connected to people and my way of coping with what the lockdown was. And then at about a little over a year, I stopped writing, and I spent the next 6 months thinking about it and selecting out of the 400 some entries. I picked about 100 and then put them in the order of chronology, how I wrote them. And then I spent another 6 months working with an editor and putting together a book proposal and getting rejected from 14 publishing companies. I got many positive comments about the book and the writing, but they said that my social footprint was not large enough to allow them to publish it. So I spent the next year and a half doing nothing. And if you've read my book, you'll know how important that is. But I wasn't sure what to do. Was it worth it to go ahead? Should I go ahead? So I was in a period of creative indecision. That was about a year and a half. And then I went into active indecision. You know, how when you're not sure, but you really think you should be sure, and you're still not sure. And one morning I say, okay, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to publish it. And then the next morning I say, I don't need to do that. You know, I'm beyond that. But at one point, it actually was right at the end of last year, I realized what I've written is my gift to you. What I've written is my gift to this world. Looking over the book, I'm quite pleased. I think, wow, there's some really nice stuff in here. But also, in some ways, we can never know. And so every morning when I was writing these, I would post them before I knew they were okay. And in publishing the book, I published before I know it's okay. And so many of you here have already said that it's quite okay. And I think indeed it is quite okay, and all of us are. So it's been a long process. And the last part, the last 6 months, I've been involved in designing the book, and then, as many of you know, in roping as many people as I could get to write a review for me on Amazon. And many of you sitting here went through many different stages to do that, and I'm so grateful. Last time I checked, there are 118 reviews on Amazon, and the book had been tracking as one of the #1 releases in Zen Buddhism over the course of September. So I once went to a party with John Kabat-Zinn, and I asked him how it was to be famous. And he looked at me like he didn't know what I was talking about. And he said, well, I'm not famous. I mean, Oprah's famous and Barack Obama. So I've enjoyed my little bit of fame, but mostly enjoyed the interaction with each person here, this interaction today. And every step along the way has been quite a joy. So I feel so blessed. Special thanks to so many people, but first of all, thanks to my mother, Sylvia Bingham. She made the trip up with my sister Ellen from Philadelphia area, and the book is dedicated to my mother, Sylvia Jones Bingham, in appreciation of her lifelong enthusiastic support and her inspiring example. She has been appreciating my creations since they were a pile of leaves brought home from the gutter, and never fails to delight and appreciate, and she claims to like this book too. Also thanking my wife, Melissa, who has put up with so much and been so much a part of this book behind the scenes. My daughter, Rachel, creative inspiration, and son-in-law, Kevin, who's up with Samara, granddaughter. And one of the stars of the book is up here in the front row, Isaiah, my grandson and traveling companion. One of my great teachers. So I'd like to start with the introduction, because introductions are usually what the author writes last. So it's not what they thought up before they wrote the book, it's what they thought up after they wrote it and said, oh, what is this? Oh, this is what it is. That's what I meant to do. So, introduction. A 3-year-old child may be able to say it, but an 80-year-old can't put it into practice. A 3-year-old child may be able to say it, but an 80-year-old can't put it into practice. It's soft and warm this morning. A light rain begins to fall as I sit out on the front porch in the half-light of the coming day. We're almost to summer solstice, but the season is really just beginning. The little zinnia flowers I grew from seed now stand in the garden and wiggle atop their thin stems as the drops hit their colorful heads. A titmouse flits from the suet to the birdseed and back again. He's a nervous little fellow, but brave enough to stay around for the easily accessible sustenance. I settle back into my protected perch on the glider and appreciate the generosity of the rain as it showers us all with the necessary nourishments of life. For as long as I remember, I have felt a longing to get to the heart of life, to live fully into the possibilities of the present moment without being weighed down by regrets about the past or worries about the future. Religious teachers, poets, and writers have pointed the way, but I have found it much more difficult to actually be present in this moment than it is to read or listen to talks about this always available opportunity. So many teachings are true and resonate with my heart, but how do I live what I already know? Several years ago, when my wife Melissa and I still lived in a Zen Buddhist temple, just above the waterfall here, I took up the practice of daily public writing. My intention was not to get somewhere else, but to explore and open to the place I already was, and to offer my observations in support of others on their journeys. As a Zen teacher for the last 20 years, a student of Zen for 20 years before that, and growing up as the son of a Presbyterian minister for 25 years before that, I have come to a great confidence in the generosity of life. Again and again, I find that what we are longing for is already here. I first understood this in Jesus saying, "The kingdom of God is within you." Then in my 20s, I found this teaching of the immanence and wonder of life to be at the core of Zen Buddhism. Through Zen, I learned that the simple practice of sitting still and paying attention is a powerful way of turning toward and waking up to the life that already and always surrounds and sustains us. Over the past 2 decades, I have also benefited from working with scores of extraordinary, ordinary people in my role as life and leadership coach. My job is to help each person uncover the deep currents and callings of their own heart, and then invite them to take practical steps to align their daily lives with the truth that is already alive in them. This is not a matter of sectarian religion or faith, but of learning to listen to ourselves and being willing to take the chance to act on what we already know. Fulfillment, I have discovered, is not a destination, but is possible at every moment and in every circumstance when we align our actions with what we love. This book you hold in your hands is a selection of the daily reflections, laments, and reveries I wrote each morning over the course of about a year. The writing is a record of my personal practice of waking up, both literally getting out of bed and finding a way into a new day, and also rousing myself from the trance of everyday life into the sacred world of the present. These short pieces were sent out to a small group of friends, colleagues, and students, and were part of my way of supporting us all through the first year of the COVID pandemic. I write about my garden and the world around me, about time with my young grandson, about the creative process of writing itself, about whatever catches my attention in the moment. But the specific content of these essays is only the vehicle to explore the bigger challenges and opportunities of living everyday life in alignment with what we already know. How do we wake up to the liveliness of our lives exactly as they are? How do we find our way to the precious heart of things in the middle of ordinary life? My hope is that my journey, complete with struggles and revelations, with wisdoms and reveries, inspires you to more fully appreciate your own life. I share what I have learned even as I do my best to practice it myself. Each one of us has our own wisdom and our own path to walk, but it takes the ongoing practice of remembering what we already know in order to fully enjoy both the wonder and the confusion along the way. Now the rain is falling harder, water streams from the sky, and the loud shushing of drops on leaves and pavement fills the neighborhood. I smile at the blessing of it all. Everywhere is touched and nourished. Now it's a full downpour. I pull the collar of my sweater up against the cool and delightfully damp breeze slipping under the porch roof and take a sip of my warm tea. The treasure we are looking for is already here, hidden in plain sight. I think I'm going to go right on to one of the ones that's been the most requested, which is features my grandson here, to cut right to the chase. And I say my grandson is my teacher in the sense that not that he is my only teacher, but in the sense that everyone we meet, everyone in your life, even the people you don't like, are your teachers. There's a great saying that a poor student needs a good teacher but for a good student, any fool will do. So we can all be rich with teachers as we go from moment to moment in our life. But this next one follows up on the theme of rain, and it's called Learning to Jump. And this took place when Isaiah was a little over a year old, I think. Maybe a year and a half. What was it? 19. Learning to jump. My grandson is trying to learn how to jump. I don't know where he got the idea. Maybe this is part of what the curriculum he's studying at preschool. Walking, running, then jumping. He's a good little runner, enthusiastically charging ahead when we walk together. His exuberant forward motion makes me a little nervous, as falls are common, but he shrieks with the pleasure in the running, and who could deny him that? Yesterday, after his normal 2-hour after preschool nap, during which he recovers from the intensive learning of his workday, he got very excited when I asked him if he wanted to go out for a walk in the rain. I suggested we go to the corner and watch the cars. Getting him into his blue unicorn rain suit turned out to be a 3-person job. I distracted him by being silly and dancing with my bright orange raincoat, while his mother and grandmother double-teamed him into the rain suit. He was willing to have his arms and legs thrust into the dark tubes of his rain gear, but he drew the line at boots. For some reason, he has decided that rain boots are an abomination and to be avoided at all costs. He cooperates in holding his feet up for sneakers, but mounts a vigorous and boisterous campaign whenever someone tries to fit his feet into the boots. Whether this is a principled statement of fashion or an irrational fear of rubber objects or a comfort issue, we don't yet know. He won the battle, so we both headed out into the light rain in sneakers and rain gear. We both love puddles and rain, me and my grandson. I remember playing outside in the summer rain with my brother when I was a boy, creating dams in the gutters to make giant pools as the rain cascaded down and we got soaked. I remember walking in the fall rain on the residential streets on the outskirts of Nagasaki, Japan. I was a 16-year-old exchange student feeling very far from home as the night fell. I walked and was somehow comforted by the familiar rain that fell on me and also on my family so far away. I remember another rainy day trying to start a campfire after a wet day hiking in the woods with my sister Ellen. We gathered a cache of the tenderest small sticks that were still somewhat dry and carefully nursed our tiny flame until it was a warm and cheerful hearth in the middle of the wet forest. And now, this is my newest rain memory. Holding a small, already wet hand, walking down the large steps by the back door in palpable anticipation of puddles. The first one we encountered by the corner of the house was only an inch deep. My grandson immediately dropped my hand, darted to the puddle, and began stomping his feet with great delight. Little flurries of stomping and splashing would yield to small shrieks of laughter and a looking up for my approval of his wondrous functioning. What is it about kids and stomping in puddles? Is it a walking on water thing, or the power of making water jump and dance? His sneakers were fully soaked within 30 seconds of leaving the house. Later in the day, I heard a short item on the radio about some 12,000-year-old footprints that had been unearthed in White Sands National Park in New Mexico. The big discovery was a mile-long trail of footprints of someone carrying a young child at a quick pace. There were also large footprints of prehistoric animals that contained hundreds of little human footprints. The current theory is that the large footprints made a puddle, and the little footprints were our toddling ancestor stomping and splashing, just like my grandson. As he was stomping in our modern puddle, my grandson began to crouch down with both feet on the ground and then straighten up quickly. At first, I wasn't sure what I was doing. Then I realized he was trying to jump, trying to go airborne, to get both feet off the ground at the same time. Though his coordination and his likelihood of success seemed quite low, his determination and joy were boundless, so I joined in. Now that I'm approaching 70, I don't usually do a lot of jumping up and down. Not that I'm against it in principle, it's just an activity requiring a great expenditure of energy with little practical value. Occasionally, walking quite fast or even jogging a little gets me somewhere at a pace dictated by necessity, but getting both feet off the ground is almost never necessary these days. But yesterday was different. People driving by in the rain on a residential street in the outskirts of Boston saw two jumping figures, a large one in a bright orange raincoat and a small one in a blue unicorn rain suit. If someone had been patient enough, they would have even seen the unicorn-clad one leave the ground for just an instant, both tiny, wet feet happy to power themselves off the surface of Earth for the first time. And which was more miraculous, a small chubby toddler rising briefly toward the heavens, or an old man jumping up and down in the rain, laughing and laughing? All right, let me read one. This is one that my mom has appreciated since it came out many years ago. She actually is my publicity agent, and most of the people in her retirement community know my poems and have been given their own copies and are eagerly awaiting their own copy of the new book. But this is, I think, for all of us who have been around for a few laps of the cycle of the sun, and noticing that our cognitive abilities are changing, and that things have their own way of disappearing sometimes. So this is called "The Things of My Life," and it's one of the poems in here. These days, when I set something down like my pen or my watch or my keys, some universal force of dispersion or attraction seems to lure it somewhere else, and I'm often left on my own, searching for what was just here. I see some chuckles out here. Like a cosmic game of hide and seek, the things of my life wander away. I try not to take it personally, as I'm sure they delight in their liberation. I like to imagine their breathtaking adventures, unburdened by reason and responsibility. They must giggle quietly at their mutual escape from my necessary purposes, and then with no witnesses, I'm sure they begin dancing their secret, unclothed dances while earnestly intoning the ancient incantations of freedom. I'm happy for their fantastic escapades, but sometimes I start to worry and I wander back to the point of last contact. I look again carefully and call out softly. When they don't come, I pause and breathe so as not to raise my voice in regret and frustration. That just encourages bad behavior. Eventually, most things choose to return. I don't ask too many questions or make a big fuss when they sheepishly reappear. I'm just happy to be together again. Yet the increasingly frequent excursions of the things of my life remind me of the days to come, when our mutual wandering will certainly increase into full entropy. I suppose in that wondrous darkness, we will all dance endlessly together without containment. The first book I wrote was the book I wrote when I couldn't write the book that I was supposed to write. I had gotten a contract from Wisdom to write a book about life coaching and Zen. And I had outlined it, and it was very logical. First you do this and you do that. But it was incredibly boring. And I decided that I didn't really believe in formulas, that there is not one way to do something. And so that first book was the book. I said, I'll give you your advance back. I can't write that book, but I can write this book, these little vignettes. But occasionally I come to some formula that can be helpful. And so here's a formula for all you people who like formulas. And it's called 9 Steps to a Happier Life. So get out your pens and pencils. A recent scientific study, there's an asterisk that says, conducted by me as I sat out on my porch this morning, reports that you can improve your happiness by up to 37%, double asterisk. 23% of all statistics are made up on the spot. You can improve your happiness by 37% by simply looking up. While we don't yet know the exact mechanism that produces the effect, lifting your gaze momentarily prevents you from doing useful work and allows you to become aware of the world that always surrounds and embraces you. Raising your eyes to the sky may also activate healing memories of being young in the summer and being on vacation and having nothing more urgent than now. In just a few minutes, you too can begin to experience the benefits of sky gazing and be on your way to a 37% happier life. Most of us have been trained constantly to look down in order to stay focused on the task at hand and avoid tripping over obstacles in our path. Looking up interrupts this functionalist perspective and begins to reweave our connection to the world around us. The simple practice of sky gazing is a way to break free from the trance of everyday life and return to a healthier and more realistic relationship to life, the earth, and the great cosmos. So this is all made up, but it's actually true. Sky gazing in 9 easy steps. 1, go outside or find a window with a view. 2, sit down in a reasonably comfortable chair, couch, or chaise lounge. 3, slouch and put your feet up if possible. 4, lift your chin several inches. 5, let your gaze rise. Parentheses, must be 45 degrees or above for maximum benefit. End parentheses. 6, look up and out with relaxed focus. 7, notice little things up high, like how the breeze moves on the leaves near the top of the trees, or how the shape of the clouds is always changing, or the specific color of the sky at this moment. 8, take a few breaths. 9, remember that the sky is always above you. Some people describe their experience of sky gazing as a mini vacation and say they re-enter their daily activities with more spaciousness, ease, and equanimity. In the interest of scientific research, I urge you to try this right now and see what effect it has on you. Parentheses, after you have done this practice from the seated position for some time, you may want to try the advanced practice, which requires lying down outside, preferably under a large tree. Let me read one about my mother now. Actually, my first book had some passages, some chapters that were about going to the bathroom, which she was not too happy about, but we negotiated on. But I don't think this book includes any of that. But there is one, several, in which she is one of the heroes. And this was written toward the end of the time I was writing, and it was on Mother's Day in 2021. And so I really love my mother. It's quite something to your mother too brought you here. Without your mother, whatever your opinion of her, and I have a very high opinion of my mother, but I'm so grateful for everything she gave me and brought me into this world, and continues to be such a treasure to me. So this is called Hi Mom. And it says, I'm thinking this Mother's Day morning of my mother and my wife and my daughter, and of mothers everywhere, giving birth to other human beings, and thereby opening themselves to the great joys and sorrows of never-ending vulnerability and wondrous attachment. Deep bows of appreciation and awe. Here's a poem for my mother and for all mothers, from all sons and daughters. Hi, Mom. Inconceivably long ago, through you came my very own head, followed closely by my tiny torso, complete with arms and legs and all the rest, surprised and bawling at first, I suppose, then later on larger and laughing too, walking and talking, full of wonder about this beautiful world of flowers that must also include sadness woven through each family as we wander together and apart in the great astonishment of being human. And the great astonishment, you want to come over here, Samara? Yeah. So Rachel, when she was this age, my daughter was in a dance with me. We did an improvisational dance. Yeah, this is the microphone. Okay, yeah. Oh, so I have to use that. Can you wave to everyone? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Samara. They say you're supposed to have the microphone like an ice cream cone in front of you, and I think she didn't get that it was a metaphor. Yes. So I'd like to do one last reading, and it is the last one in the book. Interestingly, it is also about rain. There are many entries about sun and the garden and many different things, as you know. But it happened to be raining the last day I wrote. The rain has quieted things down this morning. It was pouring just a little while ago as I lay warm in my bed in the dark of my new bedroom. Now it has stopped and the contrast sounds silent. Just the cooing of the morning dove and the slight ringing in my ears as I strain to listen. And of course the distant hush of traffic. Pleasant Street, where the temple is, and where I lived for the past 11 years, is a main thoroughfare between Worcester's downtown and the northwestern suburbs. The street where we live now is a few blocks up from Pleasant Street and significantly quieter. Yet, as I have reported, the rush of traffic on a quiet morning is the background drone, even through closed windows. But it's only in the morning when my ears are tender with sleep and before the busyness of the day that I notice the ubiquitous drone. This inevitable sound of civilization is modified by the morning doves and accompanied by the usual morning chorus of assorted and mostly invisible birds. I'd like to be an invisible bird, singing with no accountability, no reviews or opinions to worry about, no social media presence to be cultivated if one is serious about spreading one's words. As an invisible bird, I sing only to sing. The song arises in me, and I am the song that I sing, and that there is no before the song or after the singing. In the moment of the call, there is only the call. A blessed relief from the self I unavoidably drag along for most of my human life. Was I good enough? Am I good enough? Will I be good enough? Yet even now I catch glimpses of the song that I am. A friend who was recently part of a public ceremony in which he was celebrated spoke of how amazing it was to hear from others who recounted small moments of being touched by his presence. Unknown to him, his song has been singing itself all his life. We humans are finely tuned to each other. Your song is not just the song you think you are trying to sing, or hope someday to sing, or are sure you cannot sing. Your true song is the one that sings itself through you. It began the day you were born. It's the one you can't help singing. Unbidden each morning, it arises on its own through you. Each of us, regardless of intention, shares as freely as the invisible birds that populate the trees around my new home. This song, this light, is mostly invisible to us. We can never step outside ourselves to see who we are. We are invisible to ourselves, and yet we are invited to sing anyway, to let ourselves be who we already are, who we can't help but being. It's not about sophistication or knowledge or advanced degrees or recognition. It's about the wondrous functioning of the universe through each of us. What if this is really true? Or what if this is even partially true? What if the ancient internal critics that so fiercely defend your inadequacy are less true than the beauty of the song that you already and helplessly are? The crow squawks, the sparrows chirp, the doves coo. An airplane flies overhead and then disappears. Thank you. So one of our practices in stand up, one of our practices in our community is what we call Dharma dialogue, and it's the chance for people to ask questions or to make comments, whatever have you. So I thought we'd just take a little time here. Michael has the microphone, so we can all hear. Is there a question or that arises in you, or a comment you'd like to share with this group? Over here.
I would like to know.
Okay.
I would like to know if Issa puts on boots.
Yes, things have changed. There's a pair of yellow boots that has been favorite foot apparel for quite a long time. So just a momentary aversion. Good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
this
Yeah,
on?
yeah, okay.
So I really deeply appreciated your book, particularly the pieces about the garden, David. But if I recall that year, there was a lot of terror. There was a lot of fear. It was a pretty dark place. Not much of that is expressed in the book.
You know, there are a number of entries about my internal darkness, about coping with things when I am not in a good mood. In fact, I talked to 2 editors I worked with. Are there too many of those places? So those are certainly in it. There were entries that I wrote about contemporary events of the day that happened during that year that I decided not to put in for political purposes. But I hope that this book is big enough to contain the whole thing, because, of course, for none of us is it easy. You know, and the shape of human life is like this. And some of the entries that I have written that I've gotten the most positive feedback on are the ones when I'm most depressed in the morning and I wake up and I'm not sure who I am, and to know all these wonderful things. All of us sitting here know, just be in the moment and this, but we all get overwhelmed. And I think it's a great comfort to know that we are not alone. It's not just personal. So, thanks, Steve. Yeah, in the back, Gary. That's good.
David, thank you for this book, and thank you for the two passages that I remember most and that'll stick with me are the boots, and putting boots, and trying to convince somebody to do something or be something that we want them to be, and letting go of that. And then the invitation what I took is getting out of my own head and having all of the answers and looking down and often stewing and being frustrated with something or somebody. And the opportunity to pick my head up and see other possibilities and not just see what's in front of me, but what's peripheral, and the invitation to absorb all of that into the stew that I'm cooking as I look down. So thank you for both of those very much.
Yeah, you know, the one about sky gazing was just came to me, and I thought, oh, this is a real goof. And yet, the more I read it and look at it, oh, this is the next book. This is yeah. Thanks, Gary. Yeah.
Thank you, David. What I loved, because I've known the public you now for several years, and I thought I got to know the private you, which there had been hints of and things you'd said, but this seemed a dive into the private David that I knew no other way of getting to know. So thank you.
Yeah, and it was really my intention to not talk philosophically, but to really go from my own experience and share that. So thank you. I'm glad that came across. Somebody in the back over there.
Hi. I don't know if you've already shared it, but I really wanted to know which one is your favorite chapter in the book. Not like in a sense which one is favorite for your mom or your wife or grandchildren, but for you. Who would you choose?
Well, as I read over these, Madhu, I had a program of about 4 hours planned. And especially since I wrote this almost 4 years ago, I wrote these and then worked on them, and so many of them I think are true. So most of them I read, and when I read it, I think, oh yeah, this one's my favorite. But I did read some of my favorite, the sky gazing and the boots and all of that. So Thanks. Yeah. Jamie.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here with everyone and hear your words. I didn't know if I'd get a chance, and I didn't say it to you when I first saw you, but I was just with my 91-year-old mom in Kansas, and every morning we read a chapter of your book, a chapter of a Norman Fisher book, and her Course in Miracles, and had a wonderful discussion. And she wanted me to say how grateful she is as a blog follower to now have your voice and your words and presence, really. And she, when I first went out, she was in kind of a dark place, and then she snapped out of it and said, "Oh, you already have your ticket." But I think your words and your presence that comes through the book I know they're a wonderful comfort for her in the dark and the light places.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jamie. And give my love to your mom. And your mom and other people here who read these when they were coming out. Every week I was writing, one or two people would just email me saying, "Oh, that was really interesting." And that was enough to keep going. Because I'm always, I kind of like to be the center of attention, and I'm always embarrassed by being the center of attention. So there's this incredible ambivalence. And so just a reminder to encourage your friends to be who they are. It doesn't take a whole lot, but just a word or two now and then is what kept me going on this. So, last one here. We'll do Tina.
Wait for your mic.
So I started reading the book. I haven't read the whole book, but I appreciated thinking about that time, the pandemic. It kind of brought me back to that place and what I was experiencing, and that was kind of interesting because we kind of have moved forward as a global community. But one of the things that I particularly liked was the metaphor of being
A little closer.
the metaphor of being that we socially is challenging, being a social being in this world. But I love the metaphor of us being rolling stones, and we kind of become smooth as we roll against each other, and that was a new way to look at it. And also, I love the last poem. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you
that's my
so much.
song.
Yeah. Well, and of course, the way to read this book is to sit down for 6 hours at one shot. And this was really meant for a book to be by your bedside, or by the toilet if you spend a long time on the toilet. Little long entries for that. Maybe the next book will be shorter. But trusting that, what comes to us is what we need. What we're looking for is right here. And so reading the book and noticing these images that catch you, the stones rubbing against each other or the other things, really trusting that as I trust this. So let me turn it back to Michael, who will instruct us in the next part. So thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for bringing such a beautiful book into this world. Really deeply appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for coming today. David will be offering signatures and to sign the book, and we also have copies of the book for sale, and his other book that will be up for sale up by the court. And we also have some wonderful, delicious treats from On the Rise Bakery, which is down the street here. So if we could get up and slowly make our way over to the table, they'll be out there in maybe about 10 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.